Welcome to Brave Awareness. I'm Ronn Pawo McLane, meditation teacher, author, and poet, and someone who's done their fair share of surviving. This podcast isn't here to teach you how to fix yourself. It's here to remind you that you're not broken. These are spoken transmissions for modern minds, reflections, disruptions, and sacred interruptions. Let's begin. I want to tell you about a morning that I'm not particularly proud of. I've been meditating for decades at this point, teaching for years about awareness, about the space between stimulus and response, about conscious compassion, and the practice of being okay even when life isn't. And then something happened. I won't go into the specifics because the specifics aren't really the point, but what I will tell you is that it was not catastrophic. It was not a death or a diagnosis or a devastating loss. It was the kind of thing, on a good day with a regular nervous system and a full night's sleep, I would have moved through with some grace. This was not that day. I reacted. Not responded, reacted. From conditioning, from something old and fast and entirely beneath conscious thought. And then I sat with the wreckage of what that reaction and thought. What was the point of any of it? All of this practice, all of this work, and still I just did that. Reacted in that way. If you've ever had that thought, if you've ever known better and still done the thing, felt the thing, said the thing, this episode is for you. Because I want to tell you what I've come to understand about those moments. And it's not really what I expected. There is a gap that nobody talks about honestly enough in this practice world. The gap between understanding something and having it integrated into your nervous system deeply enough that it's available under pressure. These are not the same thing, and confusing them is the source of enormous, unnecessary shame. Understanding lives in the mind. It's cognitive. You read something, you hear something, it makes sense. You nod, that's all understanding. It's real and it matters, but it is not practice. It's the beginning of practice. Integration is something different. Integration is what happens when the understanding has been repeated, applied, tested, failed, applied again, enough times that it begins to live not just in the mind, but in the body, in the nervous system, in the space between stimulus and response, where the real work actually happens. Integration takes time, and it takes failure. There is no shortcut through that. So when you fall apart despite knowing better, what is happening is not that the practice has failed you. What is happening is that you have encountered the edge of your current integration. The place where the understanding lives, but the nervous system has not yet caught up. That edge is not a wall. It's exactly where the next layer of practice begins. Here is something I wish someone had told me earlier in the practice. Your nervous system does not read books. It does not attend retreats. It does not listen to podcasts. It does not update its operating instructions based on what your conscious mind has learned since the last time it was threatened. When something triggers a threat response, real or perceived, physical or emotional, the nervous system responds from its conditioning. From everything it learned about how to survive before you were old enough to choose what you were learning. That response is fast. It's below thought. By the time you're aware, practicing book reading mind has a chance to weigh in. The nervous system has already made its move. This is not a character flaw, it's biology. This is the survival architecture of a species that has been managing threats for a very long time. The practice does not eliminate that response. What the practice does, over time, with repetition, with the willingness to keep showing up after the failures, is shorten the window. The reaction still fires, but the return becomes faster. The recovery becomes more graceful. The time between falling apart and finding your footing again gets shorter. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. I want to name the thing that most reliably prevents people from continuing to practice after they fall apart. It's not discouragement. It's not doubt. It's shame. The specific shame of someone who knows better, who has the language, the framework, the years of practice, and who still reacted from conditioning instead of responding from awareness. That shame has a particular sting to it because it arrives with a verdict. If I really had this, that wouldn't have happened. Which means I don't really have this. Which means all of it, the practice, the work, the teaching, the writing, is performance rather than transformation. That stings. I have felt that shame more than once, more than I would like to admit. And what I have come to understand is that the shame is itself a product of the same confusion we talk about in episode 3. It's the confusion between accepting the failure happened and approving of it. The practitioner who cannot accept their own falling apart, who cannot apply the same clear seeing to themselves that they would offer to anyone else, is stuck at the third A in the most personal way possible. You are doing your best based on your capacity in that moment. That is true of you on your worst days just as surely as it's true of the people who have been the hardest for you to forgive. Apply it to yourself first. This is where the practice actually lives. I want to end this teaching section with something that took me a long time to actually believe. The moments when the practice appears to fail are often the moments the practice is doing the most important work. Because every time you fall apart and then find your way back, every time you react from conditioning and then catch it, name it, apply some measure of honest self-compassion, and return to the practice, you're building something. Not in the mind, in the body, in the nervous system, in the actual architecture of who you are under pressure. The fall is not evidence that the practice is not working. The fall is the practice working on the parts of you that understanding alone cannot reach. You are not broken for falling apart. You are being rebuilt from the inside. Now, this week I want to offer you something different from the last few episodes. Instead of a practice trying to go forward, I want to invite you to look backward. Think of a recent moment when you fell apart, when you reacted instead of responded, when you knew better and did the thing anyway. And instead of asking, what you should have done differently, ask this. What was happening in my body in that moment? Not what was I thinking? What was I feeling physically? Where did the reaction live before it became behavior? And then, how long did it take me to find my footing again? Because that recovery time, that window between the fall and the return, is the actual measure of your practice. Not whether you fell, but how quickly you found your way back. If it was faster than the last time something happened, even a little faster, the practice is working. Even when it feels like it isn't. I want to say something directly before I let you go. If you are someone who is doing this work, genuinely doing it, not performing it, you're going to fall apart sometimes. That is not the exception. That is the condition of being a human being who is paying attention. The people who never appear to fall apart are not more practiced than you. They are either more defended or they are not being honest about what is happening inside of them. Neither of those is the goal. The goal is not to stop falling. The goal is to fall honestly, recover with some grace, and understand a little bit more about yourself each time. This is the practice. It does not end. It just gets more honest. Next week, we take everything we have been building this season and walk it into the place where it is most needed and most difficult. Where two people who care about each other bring their conditioning into the same room and try to meet each other across the gap. Eyes open, compass steady. That's enough for today. If this opened something for you, stay close. You can subscribe, share it, or just sit with what stirred. Brave awareness isn't a destination, it's a return. I'll meet you there again soon.